What's up, everyone? My name is Pete, and today we're going to be discussing Fox and CBS's Madden 8K camera and what types of cameras they're using, what stabilizer they're using, and also, of course, what lenses are being utilized. But first, I need to go home. It's a little cold out here. As I said, I've seen a ton of people on Twitter and on radio shows talking about this angle, both professional videographers and fans alike, just talking about this new camera that Fox and CBS have been utilizing. So we're going to debunk it today, and I'm going to tell you why it's not 8K, but why it looks like 8K. In principle, there are three reasons why this footage looks so good, or 8K. And the first and foremost, most important reason is that blurry background. You're not used to seeing on a broadcast that blurry background, that shallow depth of field, meaning that the lens they're using has a very low f-stop number, meaning it lets in more light and allows the camera to isolate that subject more and blur the background, much like portrait mode on your iPhone. Traditional broadcast cameras don't usually do this. They keep everything in focus with a lower shutter speed and a higher f-stop number, and you're used to seeing very flat, everything in focus footage because the camera operator, his job is just to keep everything in frame. That's the priority for a traditional broadcast camera, just to follow the action and not worry about keeping things in focus, as it should be. And this blurry background, this shallow depth of field, looks fantastic next to that flatter, more traditional broadcast footage. The other two reasons this camera looks so good are its high shutter speed and the fact that it's shot most likely in 60 frames a second out of the camera. When you lower the f-stop number, letting in more light, something else has to give in the camera. You have to turn your shutter speed up or drop your ISO. And in this case, they turned their shutter speed up. And what that means is there's less motion blur on the subject. And if we watch this clip here of the Seahawks, you can tell there's little to no motion blur. Every frame looks like its own individual snap picture. The higher the shutter speed, the less motion blur, and that is also adding to the effect of this looking 8K or a higher resolution, even though it is just the same resolution as what you're used to seeing. Traditional broadcast cameras usually have a much lower shutter speed because everything is in focus. The higher the f-stop number, something else has to give, like I said, so they turn the shutter speed way down, which is why when you're watching a guy diving or running, his legs are a little blurrier than normal. It emulates what your eyes see. In turn, the footage being shot straight out of camera in 60 frames a second is going to look smoother because your brain cannot process motion blur at 60 frames a second. Most television shows and movies are shot at 24 or 30 frames a second to emulate what your eyes see best. At 60 frames a second, it looks a lot smoother because your brain can't pick up on the motion blur with that many frames. So most likely what I think is happening is all three of these reasons kind of combining to make for less motion blur and just a shallower depth of field kind of add to this whole cocktail of it looking like a higher resolution or 8K, quote unquote. As for the rig that Fox and CBS are utilizing, it looks like they're using Sony mirrorless cameras, like the one you're watching this video on right now. That runs in at about $2,000, and the lens they're using is a 24 to 70 f2.8, and that allows them to zoom in decently tight, as you've seen with this camera, and also a little bit wider. And that f2.8 means that they can open up the lens more, letting in more light, creating that shallower depth of field, like I said. The camera and the lens are situated on a DJI Ronin, which it looks like. That is basically a camera stabilizer for small cameras like the Sony mirrorless or similar Canon DSLRs, and that allows the camera operator to run around freely, and it will basically absorb all the movements and him running, and it's what you see in movies, and you've seen it in TV broadcasts before. It's just a smaller version for smaller cameras. So with that being said, it's really nice to see broadcast teams and companies kind of try new things and innovate. It's awesome to see like the world of social media video kind of flood into more traditional broadcasts. So props to Fox and CBS for that. Anyways, if you have any further comments or questions, leave them in the comment section below. I will be happy to answer them. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. I do a lot of cinematic vlogs and videography based tutorials on this channel. So I will see you guys in the next video, and stay tuned.